rivers of Massachusetts and Connecticut and Rhode Island and such, people got around on foot or on horseback. And for anyone who lives in this area, you know that that could be quite fun and dandy in the summer. But as we head into the winter months, this can become a royal pain because we get snow. We get so much snow that here in Sutton, which is where I happen to live, the very first settlers had enough snow that the snow went up over their roofs. Now granted, their houses were probably little short one-story houses, but still, imagine your entire house cased in snow and having to try to climb your way out. Imagine now trying to take a trek from Providence to Worcester or Worcester to Boston or something because you want to visit relatives or sell your goods or all that kind of stuff. It was quite a challenging journey. So, around the 1800s, they decided that maybe they should try to make something easier for Worcester, which is in the middle here, and a landlocked place, and it had farms and some manufacturers and stuff. They want to make an easier way for them to get goods from there down to the water area, because once you're on the water area, you can go over to New Haven and New York and around to Boston and all sorts of other stuff fairly easy. Let me just grab this. I'm just looking up if it says when it was started. Yeah, so this doesn't say when it was started. Oh, here we go, 1822. So we had lots of farmers and manufacturers and everything else who were eager to find an easier way to transport their goods. And you could say, well, why didn't they just go on the Blackstone River, which we already went from one point to the other, but rivers have waterfalls and rapids and all sorts of other things which are not really great for boats to try to navigate. So during this time period, there was in New York the Erie Canal, and a canal is a path of water, but it's a fairly straight, easy one, and it's man-made, so we carve out a road, in essence, a water road. So the water road doesn't have rapids, and it doesn't have waterfalls and other things like that, so it makes it much easier for a boat to go back and forth one end to the other. So because they had success doing this in Erie, they said, well, hey, we'll do this with the Blackstone River. So in some sections the Blackstone River is fairly calm and they could use the river, but in other sections they would build a canal part, and that way the boat would go into the canal and would go nice and calm and steady around the areas that had rapids or waterfalls or things like that. So they started the process in 1822, and by 1828 they had a canal built. So tons of workers were brought in to do this. There were lots of engineers to figure this out. And from 1828 to 1848, people were having a great time on the canal because now all the lots of mills were built up in Worcester, and all along this pathway lots of mills were springing up, and the goods could easily get down into the Providence area and then get sent around to Boston. So it was a huge boon for manufacturing and for people too to take trips. And here's a picture from the Blackstone Heritage Corridor about what this looked like. Let me just make sure that you can see that. So I know it's a little fuzzy, but you can go to the Blackstone Heritage Corridor page and see it for yourself. So what they did is they would have horses pulling them, because these things didn't have engines. I mean, this was before engine days, and you didn't want people to be trying to row these or sail these or something. So they hook up the horses, and the horses would just meander along the little side towpath and have a line that connected them to the boat. And since the boat was just floating on water, it wasn't really heavy for the horses. They would just walk along, and the people could just ride on the boats or the manufactured goods, whatever they were shipping. And it was a nice, calm journey. And it was a relaxing journey for people. I imagine that their alternative was to walk the distance or to ride a horse, which meant that you had to balance on the horse and feed the horse and everything else. But this was now a journey of luxury. You just hang out on the boat, maybe you have a snack, and it was relaxing. So people loved the canals. Passengers would go on the canals, goods would go back and forth on the canals. And the downfall was that railroads started to come in. So this thing that they spent so much time and energy on building and that they thought was going to last hundreds of years. Only 20 years later, the railroads came in, and now they ran railroad lines everywhere, and everyone started using the railroads instead because railroads were faster than these, and they didn't have problems in the winter with the water freezing and stuff like that. So, goes to show that something that you think is the world's coolest idea, and you put all this investment in it thinking, oh, this is going to last, multiple generations, and then poof, it is made obsolete right away. So I'm sure we can think about all sorts of examples in our modern time that are like this. The Polaroid camera comes to mind, that it came out and everyone thought it was the coolest thing, and then in the blink of an eye later, digital cameras came out, and now people aren't using Polaroid cameras anymore. So part of how this system worked, if you think about a river runs from areas that are high up in hills down to areas that are low in the coastline. So the water is changing level along the way. And the way a river manages that is with waterfalls. But you don't want a waterfall with a boat like this. So what they did instead to manage how the water changed levels over time is they would have locks. So a lock would be, let me find a pen. Here we go. So a lock would be, let's see if I got something with more space to draw. All right, so that's a drawing of a canal boat. So imagine that you have water coming along at this level. This is a mountain, so it's a side view. Water's coming along at this level, and you need it to be down at this level, and you don't want it to go down a waterfall. What they did was built a lock, and again, this is a side view, and these things are really cool. I went on a river cruise in Danube that you get to go through locks. So it's a stone structure that has gates on either side that can open and close. And they were wooden gates at the time. Alright, so this stone structure, they fill it so that the water comes in here. So this is all water, right? We're looking at this from the side. And here's the boat. Alright, so boat comes in at the upstream level, the high level. We'll put a little person on there. So it comes into this lock at the high level, and this is all stone, and it's got wood on either side, so that holds it like a giant bathtub. So the boat sits in here in its giant bathtub. Alright, so once the boat gets fully in there, they close this gate up. So now it's sealed on all sides like it's a boat in a giant bathtub, and then they drain out the water. In essence, they open up the bottom of this thing. They drain it slowly so the boat doesn't go flying down to the bottom of the thing. But so this water comes out, and it comes out, and this block, this wood door, prevents this water from getting in. So that's blocked off. So this drains down, and then the boat is down here once the water slowly but surely drains down. And now they open this doorway up, and the boat just drifts out on this side. So a lock is a way for the boat to go from a higher level, which would be that side, comes in at the higher level, it's up at the higher level, they close off the gates, which are these big wooden things. So that's closed. The boat goes slowly drifting down as they let the water out, down to that lower level. And now they open up that wooden door, and the boat goes sailing out at that lower level. So locks are really cool items, and we used to have a bunch of them around the Blackstone Canal to do all the different water level changes. But now there is only one intact lock left, and that is in Millville. So if you go to Millville, to their walking trail, and it's a little bit off the walking trail, so you have to go down to a little dirt path. So the main part of the walking trail is nice and flat, but then there's a little dirt path that goes off to the left, and it goes down to the river, and you can see one of these actual locks. And the wood has rotted away by this point, so you can see the stone square that used to be what the boats went into and out of. So it's pretty neat to go take a look at this and see what it's like, and to imagine what it must have been like to be riding on these canal boats When you look at canal boats, both back the pictures of the ones from the Blackstone Canal and any canal boats, because there's a bunch of canals and still in operation around the world. If you look at canal boats today, they generally are made of a certain specific shape. They have a set length from front to back, they have a set width from side to side, and they have a set height, which is usually fairly short. And that's because they have to fit in these locks. They cannot go anywhere unless they can get through that lock. And that lock has a set length, a set width side to side, and some of them, with the way that these doors open, the doors only open a certain height, so it might slide up to this point, and it won't slide any higher. So the boat has to get out. So it has to be able to fit through that space right there. So it has to be a certain height. And you can't even sit on the top of the boat while it's going through that height, because it's really, they're trying to maximize the amount of space that they can get out of this boat. So they make it so it just barely fits on all dimensions in this lock area. So that's how the boats end up having these kinds of shape, and it's to fit into that lock to get from level to level. So canal boats are super cool. They are quite relaxing as they float along the canal. Most ones that they have nowadays don't have horses pulling them. They just drift with the natural flow of the river. And if they need to get back upstream, then they have little motors, because nowadays we have motors for our motorboats. So they don't need horses anymore, which is a shame, but I suppose it's better for the horses that they're not stuck pulling things around all the time. Horses probably got bored walking the same path back and forth, but heck, when you think of a farmer's horse, they probably got bored walking circles around their fields all the time too. So it is all relative. So what we are going to do is we're going to explore some different art techniques while exploring the fun of these canal boats.